We're back, baby. Top 5 fantasy targets of every club arrives with the Minnesota Wild and an intriguing club on the brink. Let's talk about it and get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The off-season work to build a winning fantasy hockey club continues on the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Mr. Roden, I'm hyped up for today's episode. Minnesota Wild. Top 5 fantasy targets for the upcoming season. A team very near and dear to your heart. Also one, though, somewhat surprisingly quiet. Lots of cap space. No real moves of significance. How are we feeling here before we get to this top 5? Some good honorable mentions, though, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, Billy G needs to take a page out of Billy Z's playbook, what he did this offseason, because I was quite disappointed with what Bill Guerin did with his, maneuvering the cap space, as well as trying to bring in players as well. You know, they acquire Vladimir Tarasenko. That's not really, that's kind of a swing and a miss, in my opinion. There might be some value as a streaming option throughout the season with Tarasenko, but you got to take this team and their fantasy value with a grain of salt. They were littered with injuries from multiple players throughout the season. Jonas Brodin missing 30 games. Kirill Kaprizov missing half the season. Joel Eriksson Ek missing half the season as well. Top stars that would have been
Kaprizov
key factors for the Minnesota Wild in their run in the playoffs as well as the regular season. There wasn't a question of doubt in my mind that if all three of those guys, especially Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek, were healthy, they were a top 3 team in the Central Division, and they could have been even top 2. That's how good they were at the beginning of the year. Starting with number 5 for me, I will throw Matt Zuccarello as the honorable mention. He just squeaks out the top 5. It was really close for me, but I had to go with Marco Rossi in this case. Really stepping out season for the young man, 23 years old, 60-point year in 82 games, hasn't missed a game in 2 seasons now. You would like to see those peripherals get a little bit higher. Only 136 shots this last year, which is down 30 from the year prior. However, the shooting percentage was an all-time high, 17.6 for the young man. So add in the 62 hits, the 41 blocks he also had. Like I said, he's still 23 years old. He was getting over 18 minutes of average ice time a night. He's still in that middle 6 role in the top 6 center for the Minnesota Wild. And like I said, if Eriksson Ek does miss some time, which he has over the last couple of seasons, Rossi is the clear next up in line to take over those top line center positions. So I think he's worth stashing late in those deeper leagues and those keeper formats. Obviously, those peripherals don't jump off the page, so I think you can still draft this guy towards the last 5 rounds of your fantasy hockey draft. He makes the top 5 for me, but I also like Matt Zuccarello and the playmaking, the top line minutes he gets, so you could switch those guys out.
Matt Zuccarello catches honorable mention for me. Zeev Buium, this is a very intriguing young player as well. Steele, who I do think will have an impact, catches honorable mention. Marco Rossi comes in at the 5 spot as well. This makes it easy for me when we don't have to disagree too much. You and I got a lot on the go here. And the main point is, for our listeners out there who we so much appreciate you guys riding with us at this time of year, these are the players that you want to be going after. Plain and simple. Marco Rossi's name, Steele, and I don't know why what your take is on it, has been in almost every rumor. Every time I look up, another team is interested in acquiring this young player. I see some upside. Offensively, there is a lot to like. Perhaps, though, this is just a case of the Minnesota Wild needing to package this kid with something else to get that game changer that you and I have been talking about for 3 years that Kirill Kaprizov needs alongside him. Matt Boldy's almost there. But I think they still need that game changer to really support him up front. I love Marco Rossi at the 5 spot here, Steele. The only risk is, where does he go? What minutes happen? How is he deployed? Considering how much real noise there has been around this guy moving cities, right now I think it's safe you throw him in at the 5 spot. I got a few other angles I want to cover with this Minnesota Wild club, but I really do love and appreciate your take on this deal. You watch far too much Minnesota Wild hockey. So if anyone's out there listening, trust my boy, Mr. Roden. He knows what he's talking about with the Wild, who comes in at 4 before we get to the rest of this list.
Yeah, I also don't want to forget about Brock Faber as well. I mean, he makes it into the honorable mention list, but just the season he had last year, there were some question marks with what he's capable of doing defensively as well offensively on the power play. And I know, again, like I said, you got to take that season with a grain of salt. The power play was near the bottom, only just over 20% on the power play. Penalty kill wasn't too great either. Again, this has been, we said this for the last couple of years, they've been a mediocre team. And especially with the injuries falling in, they are still a mediocre team. However, if they're healthy, they're one of the best in my opinion. So wanted to throw Brock Faber in that honorable mention list just because he had a disappointing season. For me at number 4, and I can understand why this guy might be higher on your list, I ended up going with Filip Gustavsson at number 4.
I had a feeling you would.
Obviously, a huge bounce back season from 2 years ago where he had a below 900 save percentage, a very high goals against average as well. He bounces back in a huge way with a 914 save percentage, a 2.56 goals against average, and a goals saved above average of 23.4. That is one of the best in the leagues, maybe the best in the league this past year as well. A 31-19-6 record. He sees a ton of shots, over close to 1,700 shots that he faced this past year. And I think when you look at what he has done over the last 3 seasons, excluding last year where it was a down year, he still had a 931 save percentage just 2 seasons ago. The Wild have tightened up a little bit defensively, which has stabilized his numbers, and he's still in his prime. He's 26, 27 years old. You're going to get great value. This might be one of the guys that you can maybe put into the 0G strategy. Maybe, there might be drafts where he gets taken really early, and there might be drafts where he falls down the board. You got to find that balance with Filip Gustavsson, and it all comes down to the health of this team. If they're without Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson Ek, who are really good defensively, they lose a guy like Jonas Brodin again. Jacob Middleton missed some time. Jared Spurgeon missed some time. There was a lot of roster maneuvers and shuffling throughout the year for this club. And with all that being said, Filip Gustavsson stood tall, and he stood tall during the playoffs as well, where he also recorded a 914 save percentage.
I really like this goaltender, Steele. And
I know you do.
Sometimes you and I differ here on at the 3 and 4 slot, and I feel like usually this is where I'll swap the goalie a little higher than you. This guy has got it all to be a legit number 1 goaltender. And let's be fair, this offense left him out to dry last year at a lot of points, and he still brought it. They finished 24th in the NHL for goals for with 225. That's right in the mix with the Blackhawks, Steele, Islanders, Flyers. I don't need to explain it any more than that. That's not going to cut it. However, let's cut it up a little bit more after the break. Talk about the rest of these players, including Filip Gustavsson, very quickly. Tap in every single day. We're here breaking it down across the league. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. We've all been there. You get on early, waiting forever for those concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot you've been dying to get. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of shopping for tickets. Game Time got your back. Game Time makes getting concert tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop the closer you get to showtime. Save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. Tap in to Game Time today. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets or any shows near you with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account. Use LOCKEDNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steel Road. And over to you, my friend. Finish your thoughts on Filip Gustavsson, and then we'll get to the top 3 of the Minnesota Wild.
I guess maybe I've been the victim of, at 24 years old, when he puts up that .931 save percentage steal, I immediately lock him into a reliable fantasy option. And then you have to deal with the perils of 2 years ago. I like what this guy can do in the crease. I'm a little bit concerned about this mini Wild club steal. Let me get it out of the way now. I can't put my finger on this club. I really can't. There are some really intriguing young pieces. There are some solid veteran options. And I think Gustavsson is one of the more reliable goaltending options that fall out of the top 5, so you don't have to get overly invested. I just really need it. I thought Billy G, you know how much we love giving that praise to the GMs? They had so much cap space. Where are they at? No moves to really note, and that makes me concerned. However, not concerned about Filip Gustavsson. I do have him at 3. But now I think at this point, we're splitting hairs because this team needs to get better.
Wait, you had Gustavsson at 3?
Yes, I did.
Who was at 4?
No, you have him at 4. I have him at 3.
And who do you have at 4?
Oh, my bad. You're right. I did. I mixed them up. Sorry. Giddy up. Thanks for holding me down. At the end of the day, this holds true to what I was just saying, though. I have a really tough time projecting what this team does next year. Bubble team, bubble playoff squad. What's your take there?
To me, I think they're one of the most overlooked franchises in the game right now. And again, last year came down to injuries. They missed half the season with Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov, and those are your 2 best players outside of course, Matt Boldy, who's had a shining season. So when they're healthy, if they were healthy, they were going to finish top 3 in the Central, and they could have been top 2 as well. That's how good they were at the beginning of the year. At number 3 on my list is Joel Eriksson Ek, and that's why I said you got to take this with a grain of salt and actually look at what he did the year prior to this one, where he played 77 games, had a career-high 30 goals, 64 points, 21 power play points, 5 game-winning goals. He had 3 straight seasons of over 225 shots, 4 straight seasons of anywhere between 105 to 170 hits. And that's what this player brings you. He is a underrated fantasy workhorse. He falls in that same tier as Vincent Trocheck, as Zach Hyman, who just do everything right offensively. They dig, they grind, they battle, and they're just one of those guys who fills out all those peripheral categories. He quietly finished in top 10 in hits among top 6 centers 2 seasons ago. He was on pace for 70 points 70 points before the injuries as well. The power play usage has steadily increased, where he gets that front net presence. And to me, he is that perfect second or third centerman for your fantasy hockey team. He is a top 75 player in my opinion. You look at where he finished 2 years ago. He was actually top 30 in the league in fantasy Yahoo rankings. Obviously, this last year, he was outside the 200 mark, 250 mark, injuries being a play of that. He also gets 60 penalty minutes for banger leagues too. This guy does it all. I love this player. I always try to draft him. If not, I always try to acquire him in a trade. I like what he brings to the table, and that's why for me, when he's healthy, he is above Filip Gustavsson on this list.
And thank you for holding me down. I have him at 3 as well. We're going to have the same top 3. Fantasy darling, right? Joel Eriksson Ek, a player that in fantasy circles gets that credit, gets that love steal. And then I think because maybe at times his game isn't so sexy, in maybe more shallow leagues, you can really jump on this player. And I don't know what you think about this take, but I would say given the relative investment a lot of GMs would have had in him last season, after 64 points and the disappointment and the frustration that a lot of GMs probably went through with this player, I think you might be able to get him at a really good round, at a really good price, and a player that this team is going to lurk around. They're going to have their struggles, and it's hard for me to say until they make a couple of moves, which I still see coming. This is a guy that I think you're going to get at a really good price deal because of that dip in production. Again, when I look at the standings too, in the Central Division, Jets, Stars, Avs, Blues, we're talking about an improved Utah club big time. I just don't really see where they necessarily fit in unless they make some noise on the free agent market or a trade, or you get a season out of Boldy and Kaprizov that just blows the doors off of everything. Let's get to your next target. Let's get to whatever else you want to say about this team, Steele, because my head's spinning a bit. I don't know where to place them, for real.
Yeah, the bottom six is not looking too pretty right now, and I think they're putting a lot of faith on some of their prospects, which we've talked about a little bit over time. You're also looking at some veterans and Ryan Hartman, Marcus Foligno as well. Nico Sturm comes back in, but you're looking at Ogren, you're looking at Urov, you're looking at Buem, you're looking at Faber as well. They're putting a lot of faith and stock in these young players who are supposed to be a part of the core. Throw Marco Rossi in the mix as well. Number 2 on my list real quickly, we'll continue the conversation after the break as well. It's obviously Matt Boldy, breakout season, career high, 73 points. The goals have slightly dipped over the last 2 years, but this guy still has 30-plus goals, 70-plus point capability, and he's just getting into his prime at 24 years old. He also has the dual eligibility on both wings, which makes him very valuable in daily formats or honestly in any kind of format. He had a very heavy shot volume last year, over 3.5 shots per game. He had 270-plus shots this last year, and I think that can even creep up a little bit higher, closer to 300 playing with Kirill Kaprizov. We love this kid. I know you love this kid as well. Definitely. He's obviously getting first power play time, top line. He's huge for secondary assists and power play points as well. He's in that best breakout candidate tier right now, and he could really flirt with 80 to 85 points this next year. Again, all things considered, if Kaprizov is healthy and remains healthy throughout the season. But I would put Boldy as the number 1 guy to have another breakout season and getting a career high 80 to 90 points.
If I want to run the tape back correctly, and you know that's a struggle for me on the best of days, I believe I sniped Matt Boldy right off your table in one of our listener league drafts. It didn't work out for me in the end because you still dusted me in both leagues. But I can remember a few hate messages coming my way. But we all now all on how good this kid is. So pay attention, tap in. We're still here every single day for the most part, breaking down every single team's top 5 fantasy targets. And let's get to Kirill, the Thrill Dollar Bill.
Yes, we will. My favorite player in the National Hockey League right now, and he comes in at number 1, and I'll tell you why he is even still a top 5 pick going into next year's draft. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? I know I've been feeling that lately. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden. Share with your friends and family out there. Over to you, my friend. Matt Boldy, you want to finish off with him? You want to get straight to Kirill Kaprizov? I mean, these two guys are absolute studs regardless.
And I think that's the obvious take here with this team. But the other one that perhaps needs to be addressed more quickly is they do need to kind of improve across the board. Jesper Wallstedt in the cage behind Gustafsson, I don't think anything needs to change. But when you look at last year's Steel, they allowed the 7th most shots against per game. They need to really tighten it up across the board. And I'm not going to lay it all on Billy G in a quiet offseason. But if you expected this team to make moves and they really just weren't good enough, I'm not going to get overly hyped up about their fantasy targets other than these top 2 guys. Those 2 guys I want on my team for sure. After that, I'm kind of okay with wherever I get the other 2. You know what I'm saying? I'm not upset if I miss out. Boldy, Kirill Dollar Bill, those 2 you want. But you know what I'm saying in terms of until I see what happens until October, I don't even know if I want to invest in anybody, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. Look, I think the rest of the guys, again, I think Filip Gustavsson, he's one of the better goaltenders in the league as well. But when you look at Zuccarello, when you look at Faber, when you look at Marco Rossi, those are more depth pieces. Those are guys you're drafting, again, somewhere between the 15th and last round. Maybe a little bit earlier, depending on who's gone at those points. But when it comes to Kirill Kaprizov, I think he's a top 5 draft pick. And I know I was actually just tuning into the Apples and Geno's first mock draft of the summer season. I believe in that mock draft, Kirill Kaprizov was taken 6th overall. I think he is top 5. Anywhere between 5 and 10 is where he should be going. Outside of that, he's an absolute value pick, an absolute steal. And even with only playing half the season, 41 games, he had 56 points. He was on pace for a career high, 115 points this past year. He is 40 plus goal potential every single season. He is 100 plus point potential every single season. He has been a point per game player every single year in the National Hockey League. He has 386 points in 319 games. He shoots the puck a ton. His shooting percentage, his career shooting percentage is 16.4. He is one of the best goal scorers in the league, right there with Leon Draisaitl, David Pastrnak, Austin Matthews as well. Those, to me, are some of the best goal scorers in the game, and I think he falls there in that mix as well. He's an absolute fantasy cheat code when healthy, and that has been the kryptonite with this guy. Obviously, this last year was major, but even just 2-3 seasons ago, missed a handful of games, just under a dozen at times. First year as well, obviously COVID year, but he's so good at what he does. He contributes. He's one of those rare wingers who contributes across all major scoring categories: goals, assists, power play points, shots on goal, plus minus. He's never been negative throughout his career. His plus minus is actually a career 71. He is a 200-foot winger. He plays the defensive side of the game as well as he does the offensive side of the game. So that's why I love this team. I love this player so much. He falls into the top 5 for me.
That breakdown, it was electric. By the way, shout out to my boy, my good neighbor, Jake the Babe at Peak to Peak Electric, the best in Niagara Steel. Take these numbers in, though. While Kirill the Bill, the Thrill, was in the lineup before he got hurt, 37 games played, the Minnesota Wild were 22-12. During those 37 games, the man was plus 20 and had 52 points. So I don't think I need to say anything else to support your cause other than those numbers right there. I would also say if he is playing in any other market other than, Minnesota, the state is obviously hockey mad, but it's not exactly the big stage. It's not a major market. He's playing in even a slightly bigger market Steel. This guy's locked. You don't need to sell people on him being a top 5 target. Right now, you might have to, because he just doesn't get the attention and love, but that's a mistake. Those numbers back it up. Let's see what they do over the next few weeks. Regardless, this guy's a 50-goal scorer in today's NHL. There is, maybe you can count that on a half hand, like you just said. Pay attention and tap in.
Hey, his 5-on-5 game is also miraculous as well. It's not just special teams. It's not just on the power play. The way he is able to really just drive plays and the possession he has, the touches he's able to create with his line mates. 5-on-5, 200-foot game, special juggernaut on the special teams as well. He really just does it all. That's why he falls into the top 5. Like you said, also one of the best goal scorers in the game. Comes in at number 1 for both of us. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash the subscribe button for your second listen. Check out the Locked On NHL Podcast because there is no offseason. They're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Good luck with all those bets this summer season, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.